So, welcome everyone to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Jose.
I'm Mike.
And today what we wanted to do was pick a film from Mubi. I've been really impressed at the curation that Mubi have been doing around cinema. It's one of the few outlets in which you can see really great international cinema, sometimes old classics. So we thought we'd devote...
Well, what is Mubi? For those who don't know, what is it?
It's a film platform.
It's a streaming service.
It's a streaming service that is really good. So basically, they curate their whole program. They put out a film a day. They have it under rubrics. So right now, for example, there's a Zhang Yimou rubric that you can watch. There's a Zanussi rubric where they're showing some of his older films. And then it's a selection of international art house hits, most of them quite recent, but also dotted with a few classics. I started seeing Swagger yesterday, which I've written a little blurb on my blog, and which was just so fantastic that I thought we'd try seeing an old classic today.
Well, the other thing that they do, Mubi, is that they give each movie 30 days on their platform.
That's right.
And that's it. So they add one movie a day, but they also take one off a day.
Right.
And they each get a 30-day lifespan, which I think is really good, because if you compare that to any other streaming service like Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, like they could have loads and loads of stuff on, but actually they act just like a dumping ground for everything that's on there. So you go, everything's on. I've got a huge list of stuff on Netflix that I'm probably not going to get around to. Whereas if you've got a 30-day time limit, there's more of a chance you're going to pay attention and get around to watching it.
Well, you see, for me, it's kind of the opposite, really. I trawl through Netflix, and it all seems like shit and B movies, and, I can't find stuff. And sometimes you see something, and you think, oh, I must remember that. And then, you try and find it again, and it's just, really shitty, really. So,
right, but that's what I mean. It's just a dumping ground for loads of TV and loads of films. And you might not even find anything. There's just too much choice. Whereas if you've got only 30 things to look at.
Well, it's not just that it's 30 things.
And only 30 days to watch them in.
Yeah, but it's 30 things that have received acclaim or that are really significant for one reason or another. They are curated films. And for me, it's really important, because one of the things that I've been A, noticing, and B, missing is how difficult it is now to see international art house cinema. It's just almost no one is showing it. And really, even the outlets that you would expect to kind of privilege that kind of programming, like the Electric in Birmingham, they're not doing it any longer. So, the idea of art house cinema now is American indie cinema.
And even American English language art house cinema, comes here for a week and then goes. So Mubi is a kind of a lifeline, really, to kind of keep in touch with currents of international cinema. Yeah.
And today we saw Elio Petri's investigation of a citizen above suspicion, a 1970 film, which actually kind of reaffirmed my love for what Mubi is doing, because I thought it was just wonderful. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked it quite a lot. It's clearly in our lives a kind of companion piece to Zed, which we watched a few weeks ago.
Yes,
came out at about the same time. It's Italian. Zed was French Greek. But it's about political corruption and a kind of weird dark comic twist on a crime story.
Yeah, it's a satire bordering on farce, really. There are moments that are just hilariously funny, but actually they're hilariously funny about things that are very serious and grave, right? It really is about kind of authority and police corruption and, the prevention of democratic processes and, citizens basically, being denied their rights at the drop of a hat.
It's set against a backdrop of communism and activism and revolution,
yes,
from young people and upstarts.
That's right. If you can imagine, May 68, this is just, a year later, really, or a year and a half later. So the film must have been kind of conceptualized around that moment of May 68. and it has a fantastic central performance by Gianmaria Volonté as a kind of Il Duce figure. So the film has this fantastic beginning, which, a man goes into a house, a beautiful woman sweeps her arms up and says, "How are you going to kill me this time?" Right? It's a fantastic opening. And then the thing is that he really does. And not only does he kill her, but he makes sure to leave clues all around. So, he puts a thread of his tie on her fingernail. He makes sure he steps all over. He steals jewelry but leaves money. He takes a leisurely shower and leaves his fingerprints everywhere. And so, the idea...
Yeah, so he builds a crime scene very deliberately and you're wondering what's going on. We didn't know anything about the film going in, and we're asking each other, what's he doing? Is he trying to frame someone else? He's building a crime scene here very deliberately.
Yeah.
It's not a crime of passion.
Yes.
There's something very deliberate going on. That's how the film opens up.
That's right.
So it's very intriguing from the beginning.
It hooks you right from the beginning. And then as the film unfurls, you realize, that he's the head of police. Not only that, he's just been promoted. He's somebody who's got great power and great influence. And basically, he wants to test the limits of that influence. So, can you really jail a person who is completely above suspicion? Right? Or does being above suspicion, in quotation marks, gives you complete impunity to commit any crime that you want?
Yeah, there's an interesting thing about it. So he as spoilers, I guess, coming up now.
Yeah.
This is a film from 1970, so there's this thing of he plants clues to lead his team. Basically, the people under him are the people who are investigating the crime, and he leads them in one way or another, and he draws them to the husband, to someone else, and then draws them away again, and then eventually is dropping clues that it's him.
Yes.
And he wants to get to the point, and this is revealed in flashback in conversations with the mistress who he murdered, that he wants to prove that he is above suspicion. She's kind of... Their relationship degenerates and it degrades into her calling him a child. And he's kind of going, "But I'm powerful, I'm in the police." Yeah. And so he wants to prove that he's above suspicion. And there's an interesting kind of subtlety to it, which is that if someone else is convicted of this crime, that's not good enough. Because someone else being convicted doesn't mean that you were above suspicion or you were above the law. What it means is that they just got it wrong. To be above suspicion, they have to know you did it and still not do anything.
Yes.
That's really... And so when you get to the end of the film, he's yelling at all the guys in charge that I did this and I've got the evidence to show you, and they're ripping it up in front of him and ignoring him. And there's this thing of they don't not believe him. Yes. I think they completely understand that he did it, but it's this thing of closing ranks. It's this weird twist on that type of scene where normally you're saying, the guy who did it is trying to prove he didn't and get away with it, and they're going, "Well, we've got all the evidence, we know what happened." It's completely backwards.
Yes.
He's saying, "I've got all the evidence, I can prove my guilt." Yes. And they're going, no, it doesn't stand up.
It's like, the police force and the forces of repression and of authority can in no way be challenged, even by an admission of guilt from the perpetrator himself, right? And the provision of all the evidence they need, because he's he's a member of the police force, and because he's such a high-ranking member of the police force, you absolutely cannot indict him.
It's bizarre. It's like he doesn't understand the world in which he operates. Actually, he does, but then actually, it's like he does for most of the film, and he's kind of so in charge. But then by that final scene, he seems kind of out of his depth. He seems like, I didn't realise that they really wouldn't do anything.
Yes. Yes, he's surprised. But let's backtrack a little bit, because, the film is beautifully structured, and its greatest achievement is its tone, because, it's really funny, right? So it's a satire that works. It's really funny. It looks beautiful. It's kind of, the use of colours, and Gianmaria Volonté is always wearing like these beautiful suits, and even like the scarf he's wearing. It's a very elegant looking film that is beautifully shot, but also it's beautifully structured. So from the moment that the mistress says, "How are you going to kill me this time?" then she reappears, and so you think that he's kind of playing, a kind of an intellectual game to test the power that he wields, right? But then it turns out that basically he's a macho authoritarian pig who basically killed her because, she didn't respect him enough and told him that, he was sexually inadequate and not good in bed and that she was having an affair with a young hot man upstairs. Like, so
a revolutionary idealist.
That's right. The opposite of him.
Yeah.
Right? So kind of, this is not just a kind of a critique of authoritarian police power in democracies. It's also a kind of a critique of machismo, really. Yeah. Which does very funny things with it. Though, it never undermines that authority, I suppose. It's also interesting in that it talks about an Italian culture in 1970 that is extraordinarily hierarchical and in which everyone knows their place. And it's extraordinarily bureaucratic and kind of, people insult underlings with impunity, like everybody's a cretin. Right?
Yeah.
I thought all of that was kind of, telling and instructive in what you see, but also kind of extremely elegant in the way that you're told it. I think it's a film that still works. I'm curious to see what you think.
Thinking about the machismo thing, I wanted to ask you about the gay character. This is something that came up when we were watching Z. The idea that for all its positive points, there is this very negative representation of a gay character.
I mean, that I'm kind of used to, and you just attribute to the time. So, but I think it is, thank you for reminding me, because it is worth underlining. So there's a scene where, they're interrogating someone who they think could have committed the murder, the mistress' husband, ex-husband, where they've been separated for 3 years, they haven't been divorced. It's Italy.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, their way of abusing him is really just to call him queer and transvestite and gay and, taking up the ass and whatever. But what was really telling was the introduction to the scene, which begins with something like, the country's in shit and, last year there were like 300 rapes and ex-drug addicts and ex-homeless people and ex-prostitutes and, 6,000 known homosexuals. So, that was very telling, right? That kind of homosexuality is linked with crime and prostitution and corruption and that it's not just a sexual activity. You're actually ranking them with like homeless people, like communists and revolutionaries and prostitutes, right?
There's also a thing of actually the main character, this cop, and his mistress. They themselves act out a kind of sexual deviant lifestyle.
Yes.
I think they pose like they pose crime photos, right?
Yes.
But in like a sort of there's a sexual tone to it. Yeah. It takes photos of her.
That's wonderful.
Like, that's true sexual deviance.
Yeah. And it's very funny. So their kink is that they perform scenes of famous sexual crimes as a way of turning each other on. So she always has to pretend like, she's the murder victim in the meadows, or the murder victim that was killed by the sea. And these are all famous murders that they restage, as something to enhance their libido, really.
Yeah, but like it's an interesting sort of counterpoint, because that is a kind of slightly different sexual.
Yeah, it's a kink,
and which you could see as kind of rather a lot darker than just being gay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but the thing is that those kinks are sexually acceptable, whereas homosexuality is something that's like socially beyond the pale, and that you kind of list alongst all the societal subversives and marginals, and something that's really outside of society, and that should be brought into the law. I do think it's unfortunate, but it is very characteristic of its time.
Yeah, sure.
So it didn't bother me too much, but though it probably should.
Yeah, well, I think the film there's a really strong feeling to the world that it builds. There's a kind of claustrophobia in the police station all the time. Like, shots are very tight in on faces, and there are big crowds where it's just heads populating the screen. And there's a lot of kind of long lens looking in. Like, the film in some ways sort of, it has that kind of classic 70s look that I suppose I suppose it's kind of slightly anticipating it in this one because it's the very start of 1970. Feels like the conversation starts to look like it later on. These kind of long lenses, and particularly a kind of, you also get these shots, long zooms in from a long way off, like this feeling of an all-seeing eye, Big Brother sort of thing going on. There's one bit of setting, one bit of kind of mise en scène that really grabbed me, which was the room full of fingerprints.
Yes.
This weird sort of Kafkaesque sort of room. The guys, I forget exactly what the guy's doing. The fingerprint guy is saying, "I've got all these fingerprints, and your fingerprints are all over the place." But the room itself, like these things are hanging up, these huge sheets with giant fingerprints on them, fingerprints smeared all over, and hands and things.
And they're all the police commissioners.
Yeah, and they're running through it like this bizarre, slightly dreamy sort of world is built out of this. But that one bit really got me.
I loved all of that because, one of the things that the film is very good at is showing you the police procedurals of the period, right? So kind of the thing that I particularly loved is seeing like a 1969 computer, right, which kind of takes up a whole room, and they try to find the address of this one person using this kind of complexly marked card. I mean, I love all of that, really. It's a very elegant film. I mean, I only began to pay attention in the last half of the film, but then I began to pay attention to how long the shots were, and they're very complex shots. They're kind of they're long shots that last for quite a while, that traverse spaces. They go from room to room very elegantly, and it's not a Steadicam; it's a traditional camera on a track, right? So and all to wonderful effect. And so the combination of that kind of, shooting, it's not quite in depth. Yeah, so the shots are not in depth because often you have Gian Maria Volonté's face in focus and the background is out of focus, but they're nonetheless kind of shot sequences. Yeah, there's a lot of lengthy shots that traverse, various rooms and that are often a scene rather than just a shot, right? Or a big part of a scene rather than just a shot. But the shooting is often quite shallow, shallow focus. Yeah, shallow focus.
There's a lot of racking focus.
Yes.
Which helps extend those shots because where you would normally have a cut, or where you would otherwise have a cut, you instead rack focus onto a different part of the frame, and that kind of provides that. But everything's kept that you still get to see all the action, and it's kept this continuity of the scene, which really contributes. It's always pleasant. It's always pleasant, that sort of thing, if you can, and it shows a skill and it shows a talent, and that's a pleasure to observe.
Yes, I thought the film kind of technically was just wonderful, and I also thought the other thing that was just incredible to me was really the lead performance. Because it's such a hard thing to do. It's like, he really acts like Mussolini, right? So it's a performance that on the one hand is really highly charged. It's a very stylized performance. And yet it's capable of great subtlety and kind of great tonal range. Yeah, it moves, from being something farcical to being something scary to, and with all the formalities that accrue, and sometimes formalities that verge on a kind of violence. I thought he was wonderful to see.
There's something about his performance that was on my mind, which is that in flashback, when you see the scenes between him and his mistress, they're kind of honest.
Yes.
He is just talking to her and reacting to her, and when she angers him, he gets angry. Every time that you see him in the present day, when you see him, kind of the when you see the main story going on of the investigation and so on. I can't think of a moment. Maybe until right at the very end, I can't think of a moment where it didn't seem like he was performing.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't seem honest at any point there, right? He's trying to keep things in control.
Well, he's performing power throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, including with her, though, he obviously feels more vulnerable to her than to anyone else in the film. I think the other moment of vulnerability is when he tries to frame the young revolutionary lover from upstairs that she's having the affair with, and he turns the tables on him,
Yes.
right? And kind of, so that's a moment of kind of vulnerability that you've rarely seen throughout the film. Another thing, and maybe the last thing that is on my mind and that I want to mention is really like, so one of my things is that, we saw I, Tonya yesterday, and just the quality of the image, like I felt it's so thin, right? Like, and you look at this film and it has like depth and texture, and it goes back to my thing about mourning celluloid. I know that you can achieve those effects on digital. But if that's the case, then why don't they, right? Because you see a film like this, and actually there's just a pleasure in looking at the colors and the style and the depth of tonalities. And I mean, it is a 4K restored version, right? And it's obviously like, a very beautifully realized 4K restoration.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, this is a restoration is meant to be how the film originally appeared. And actually, I think so few films, so few contemporary films appear to us with the depth of color and, just kind of a kind of a formal beauty that celluloid seems to achieve in films of this period.
I, Tonya was shot on 35mm.
Right. Okay, well, there you go.
Saying. I've just found out.
Okay, well, very badly shot then on 35mm.
Well, that might be a certain thing, but no, it was shot on film apparently. I did think that was shot on film. Weirdly, it looked like that. Anyway,
I stand corrected. It looked thin.
But I mean, there's a reason that this won Best Foreign Picture.
I didn't know.
I'll check the actual. I think it's the best film in a foreign language. But let me just quickly check for you. Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film.
Okay, well, wonderful.
Did you not know that?
I did not know that. No. And all I can say after having viewed it is that it probably deserves to. It's a great movie.
It won the grand prize at Cannes as well. Second most prestigious to the Palme d'Or. That is.
Right.
And the Fipreschi Prize, which I will find out what that is. The International Federation of Film Critics, short for Fédération Internationale de la Presse Cinématographique.
Okay, very good.
Brussels.
Anyway, so let's wrap it up here. I mean, it's a wonderful film. It's a film that is made possible for viewing through Mubi, and I think it's one of the reasons to have a look at Mubi and kind of try out what they offer. I mean, for me, it's been a boon, and actually watching Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion is a demonstration or a proof of actually how good what they're doing is.
Yeah, and something else is that you invited me on Mubi. You sent. I got an email from you.
Yes.
Or from Mubi. Jose invites you to watch Swagger free for 7 days.
Yes.
So they have a sort of invite program to get people involved.
Yes, I hope
watching that.
I hope that works.
Is it English language Swagger?
It's in French, but with English subtitles.
Okay.
And you'll really love it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, so this is Eavesdropping at the Movies. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on SoundCloud, and we're free to download on iTunes. So do give us some feedback. We welcome it. And actually, it's very interesting the way that this podcast is changing as a result of your feedback and hopefully getting better.
Yeah, for instance, we do introductions and outros now.
Yes. Yeah, we're getting professional. All right, thank you very much.
Go on then.
Oh, we just forgot to mention Ennio Morricone.
His score.
Who did the score, and it's a brilliant score because it's actually very upbeat and it has like these bing sounds and and it kind of is really crucial to the creation of a tone, that the film actually requires because, without having a comical tone to the whole thing or a satirical, farcical tone to the whole thing, the film, might have fallen into a kind of an excessive police procedural, really.
Yeah, well, the score kind of combines like a sort of ticking, like detective-y, crimey, tense thing, but then there are these slightly wacky things on top of it. Sometimes it's a sort of annoying.
Yes.
Well, that's not right, but like
these
mechanical or electronic noises that punctuate it and give it a different tone.
And you said at the beginning that it was instantly recognizable, and you would have recognized it as a Morricone.
Yeah, if I hadn't seen on the credits it was Morricone, I would have gone, this is Morricone.
Yes.
You can tell.
Yeah, so
there's a sort of the use of the leitmotif that's kind of slightly ominous, teasing, sort of what's going to happen.
Yes. But then with those, poppy, almost artificial sounds that are so recognizable from the Sergio Leone films, actually.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, well, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, well, now you said it.
Excellent.